Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Speaking of Zane, September 29th edition, 2024. The 296th time that we've had a Speaking of Zane episode. Why Speaking of Zane? I don't know. It's crazy. One Sunday night, August 5th, 2018, maybe. I just decided to get on here and blabber about Zane, and we just couldn't bear the thought of him being forgotten and his name no longer being spoken. And that was the impetus of Speaking of Zane, and we've done that now 296 times and counting. And good to have you all here with us tonight, for sure, on the 296th. Coming up on 300 episodes. That's crazy. We don't always, we've skipped some weeks. In fact, we skipped last week because, boy, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. But Lori and I drove back from Memphis last Sunday, and I was just too tuckered to do all the show prep and get my poop in a group and be ready to do Speaking of Zane. So I put it off till this week, but it's been crazy since then. I'll give you a little recap of what the heck has been going on around here at the fabulous McDonald Estate and Insane Asylum. First of all, let me get the check-ins here. Daryl is in there. Hey, Daryl. Ken's in there. Hey, Ken. Sorry about the loss of one of your squadron mates there. Perhaps you can put his name in the chat there so we can all acknowledge his passing. My dad's in there. More about my dad here in a little bit, and all of the folks in South Georgia impacted by the hurricane. Lori is in there. More about Lori in a minute. That's the crazy couple of weeks we've had. Lori is at Northside Hospital in Atlanta, tuning in to Speaking of Zane. Carl and Peggy's in there. Colin Crim's in there from Albuquerque. Yeah, Ken. Yeah, sometimes I get a hankering to I tell you what, the goatee comes in absolutely white, not even glamorous gray, just absolutely white, and I'm like, I just got rid of it. Some say I look younger without it. I don't know. I'm tired. I'm past the trying to look young stage. But anyway, it was just kind of getting to me there. But let's see. Jimbo Miller's in there. Hey, Jim. Good to see you. And my sister Sharon's in there. Hey, Sharon. I'll tell you what, more about the hurricane here in a minute. And my dad and my sister and all those down in South Georgia. And Ken's putting the name of his squadron mate there. From when they pulled alert in the missile silos together in the early 90s. Carl Moscato, I think I got that right. And Ken, that's a shame that we lose our peers and our friends, but it's inevitable. None of us get out of this alive, for sure. But thoughts are with you and his family. Well, I mentioned it has been a crazy couple of weeks. Oh, my goodness. Last week, first of all, we had a fantastic trip to Memphis. I took the 18-year-old Tundra, which drives like a dream. Got a new set of shoes on it, strong motor, 250,000 miles on it. We drove that puppy to Memphis, cruised through Birmingham all the way up through Tupelo and then to Memphis, and had a really good time in Memphis. Stayed downtown and got to see my sister and all of her daughters. And of course, her daughter, Ashley, got married to an awesome guy, Lorenzo Blade. How's this for a name? Lorenzo Blade. Cool name. Why couldn't I get a cool name like Blade? But anyway, it was an incredible wedding at an old mansion in downtown Memphis. Just a very short Uber ride from the hotel where Lori and I were. And Ashley was an absolutely beautiful bride. and her sister Sharon was there with her daughter and 2 sons, and then her sister Heather was there with her daughter, and that was great to see them and see Eddie, Ashley, Heather and Kaylee's father, and it was it's a cool city, and it was an awesome wedding, and right up until the point where Lori's done some catering, and Lori worked in the kitchen at our church, and she learned all of these things from our friend Arlene down in Savannah. She knows how to cook. She knows how to cut a wedding cake. And Ashley had asked Lori, would you cut because it was a 3-tiered wedding cake, and there's a procedure you have to go through, by and all this stuff to cut the cake. So Lori's like, yeah. Now, keep in mind, Lori had just got out of the hospital about a week before, having a blockage cleared, and it appeared that everything was okay, and the doc got the blockage cleared, and Lori was feeling good enough to travel and all this stuff. So we're thinking, oh, okay, we're on the other side of all that. Drive 6 hours to Memphis, have a great time, go to the wedding. Lori's cutting the cake, and thank God she didn't Ralph on the cake, but she all of a sudden had to barf, and she did so in the room where the cake was, over in the corner. It was terrible. Lori's sister-in-law Maureen was there and helped her, and we got her settled and everything. And fortunately, it was toward the end of the wedding. What do you call the reception? Yeah, reception. Anyway, I felt so terrible. Got her back to the hotel. There's Brenda Lusk. Hey, Brenda. Got Lori back to the hotel. Managed to get a night's sleep before getting up the next day and driving 6 hours back to Atlanta. And fortunately, Lori, she was okay on the drive back. Oh gosh. But she'd coordinated all this stuff with her gastric doctor, and they scheduled her to come in on Tuesday for him to scope to check what the problem is, because clearly there's problems still. It's a long story, folks, so get settled in. So Wednesday, yeah, Lori's there. She'll tell me Wednesday. So we get home Sunday. She's scheduled. We go to Northside Hospital on Wednesday, and she has the procedure again. The second time, the doc scopes down in there, it balloons the area and gets the blockage and all this crazy stuff. So, and it's kind of an outpatient thing. We're there during the day. I took the day off, and so we're there during the day, and we get home that evening, Wednesday evening, I guess. Well, 4 a.m, Lori's like, I cannot stop throwing up. And not only that, it's blood, like bright red blood. I mean, like a trash can full of blood. She's like, do we need to call an ambulance? I'm like, no, I'll drive you. And her doctor's so good, she could text him. And she called the office, text the doctor and all this. Dr. Proctor's his name. He says, okay, don't go to the emergency room, go to the emergency room, but come straight back to Northside Hospital. It's about an hour drive for us, 50 minutes. 4 a.m, so we get dressed and everything and get in the car, and Lori's puking blood the whole way, and we get to the emergency room at 5 a.m. This is the day after we had the thing. So we get in the emergency room, and they get her all the protocol they have to go through, all the stuff, all the admission, all this stuff. It's crazy. Hey there, Aaron. How you doing, buddy? On a train from Chicago to Memphis. Wow, how about that? Is that an Amtrak? That's a journey right there. We were just talking about Memphis. Lori and I were in Memphis last weekend. But anyway, so we get to the emergency room at 5 a.m. We go through all the stuff. They finally, Hannah meets us over there. Our oldest daughter meets us. She's better in these situations than I am. I'm in the lobby, in the waiting room. Hannah's in there with Lori. And Hannah don't mess around. Hannah's texting the doctor. She says, I don't think you realize the vast amount of blood that's coming out of her. And anyway, so the doc takes it seriously, and then all of a sudden everybody starts getting a little more motivated. And anyway, finally they get her up to a room, all this stuff, doing all the tests and everything. And they're thinking she's got a block, she has a blockage, and maybe it's just came back and all this. Well, the biggest problem with the bleeding, it turns out, was, and I don't know any of these terminology, but it's the INR. INR, that's I forget what it stands for, but it's how long it takes your blood to clot. And normally it's between 1 and 2. And that's 1 and 2 seconds, I believe. Well, Lori's was over 6. It's like incredibly thin. She takes blood thinners because she's clot prone. Well, anyway, the INR was so high that she just kept bleeding so much inside that it would just come out. Anyway, it's gross, but she's the most strong and resilient human being that I know. Anyway, so she was scared. Trust me, this is the scariest I've seen her in a long time. So anyway, they finally realize how thin the blood is, and the procedure the doc had done the day before causes capillary bleeding, and it was just not clotting, and the blood kept coming out. So anyway, they got a course of action they can take. They're giving her plasma and potassium and all this stuff to thicken up her blood and get it all to stop and all that stuff. So I don't know when that was, Thursday maybe. Thursday. And then finally, I think, and then she's in there. And then Friday, I think they got her to a point where the blood was thick enough that they could go scope again to look around. And I think they did that. I wasn't there. But they checked everything out and made sure everything was clear and everything. And they want to do it again. They're going to do it again, but they got to get the blood back to this particular level, and she's got to be able to eat. And the doctor, this is the 3rd, 4th time she's been in there with this now. So the doctor is like, I don't want you to go home until we get this thoroughly checked out. No more sending you home in this trouble. Anyway, I agree with that. So that's where she's at now. I went over there Saturday. I went over there and spent some time with her Saturday, took her some things that she needed. And then today they were supposed to do another scope, and they decided not to. And now they're talking about what they're going to do next. And it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But I've talked to her a couple times today, and she's much more aware and seems much better, much more better than she was. But anyway, that's been the craziness at our place since Memphis, since last week. Last week in Memphis, when she puked at the wedding, and here we are. So hopefully they're getting everything squared away. But you can see her putting some of the details there. in the chat there. But anyway, so she's at the hospital still, watching Speaking of Zane. And but it was crazy. And then through all of this, we have a freaking hurricane. Oh my goodness, Hurricane Helene. I'll tell you, that hurricane was serious. I mean, the outer, it turns out, I saw a graph. It turns out if you're on the east side of the hurricane, you were impacted to a greater extent. And so Tampa was flooded. My Warriors place was flooded again. They just got the Blue Cottage fixed from the last flood, and now it's been flooded again. So I don't know what the heck Kelly's going to do. I think she needs to put that Blue Cottage, which is down by the boat dock, needs to be on stilts because it gets flooded every time. Anyway, more about that in a minute. But this thing had serious, widespread impact. Like Ken's saying in the chat, the dirty side, that's the east side. And when it came up into Valdosta, Tifton, Fitzgerald, where my folks live, my dad said he's never seen Fitzgerald so devastated. I mean, I think they had 80+ mile an hour winds there, and they're well inland. I don't even want to think about Perry and Tallahassee. I haven't seen any news coverage there, but I know my dad and my sister live in Fitzgerald, and a bunch of my relatives, my brothers and everything, and they had no electricity, no cell coverage, no internet access. So we went over a day without knowing, how everything was going down there. And I think my brother Brad swung by, checked on them, and then eventually my dad and my sister drove from Fitzgerald to Tifton to get cell service. And my sister checked in with me and everything. My dad has a generator, had that all prepped and ready to go. And so they were able to keep the fridge and the freezer and everything going, but they didn't have any way to communicate with anybody. And then I think now slowly everything's coming back. They eventually got electricity and then cell service and internet. And but I know that there's lots of people in South Georgia and even all the way over in Savannah on that, like Ken said, the dirty side that were impacted with down trees, power lines, outages. Some are still without power. My Aunt Mary's without power, like she says in the chat there. But just an incredible impact. Now, Atlanta was supposed to be the path. The eye was coming right over Atlanta. But it turns out that most of Atlanta was on the west side of it. So, I mean, we just had heavy rain that night and really no wind to speak of. And sure enough, everything on the east side. And then when it gets up past us, that's when it wreaks havoc because it slows down, the rain intensifies. And those folks in eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina just devastated. Chimney Rock, Asheville, those little Tennessee towns, just incredible. South Carolina has the greatest number of homes without power. It's just incredible. Even more so than Florida. It's just it's incredible. The damage, devastation that a storm like that can cause. And anyway, my Warriors place, I've got a group of folks down there, of course, and we'll do what we can over the coming weeks, mobilize to get out there and do some cleanup or whatever needs to be done. But just absolutely crazy that the impact that can have. But I know 50 some odd people were killed as a result. I don't know how many per state, but just a devastating storm. But anywho, crazy. Well, switching, speaking of daughters, I talked about my daughter Hannah. My daughter Charlotte, the world traveler, she was in England over the weekend. I think she comes home tomorrow. She spent the weekend with a colleague, a coworker of hers, in a little town about a 2-hour train ride west of London called Bath. And she's been there checking in with me over the weekend. She flew from O'Hare to Heathrow, and then before she even got on the plane, she checked in to make sure her mom was okay. And she said, "Hey, do I need to cancel?" And by then we knew what was going on. I said, no reason for you to cancel, go on. And so she's been checking in periodically. But wow, it's been crazy. But sometimes it's hard in the aftermath of that to do things that are fun, like watch college football or watch Braves baseball. But I did some of that over the weekend. A&M won, beat Arkansas in a tough game. Georgia Southern won. The Bulldogs lost to Alabama. They both can't win. And Nebraska wins. I think they beat Purdue maybe. But I watched bits and pieces of a variety of games like I usually do. But and then the Braves, of course, are down to the wire, fighting for a wild card spot, and they thankfully they took 2 of 3 from Kansas City, which means that they play a doubleheader tomorrow, which are 2 makeup games from last week against the Mets, who they're tied with at 6 games behind the Phillies. So I think if the Braves win one of the 2 games in tomorrow's doubleheaders, they're in. The only way the Braves are not in is if they lose both games tomorrow, and they're day games, like a 1 o'clock and a 4:30 game. So I'll be working, but I'll have the Braves game on. Anyway, it's crazy to come down to the final 2 games of the season, but anyway. So the hat of the week always has something to do with what the heck is going on around here. And because Texas A&M beat the Arkansas Razorbacks, I thought I would wear the Texas A&M dad hat again this week for the hat of the week. Okay, wow, it's been have I mentioned it's been a crazy couple of weeks for sure around here. But a couple of items this week in military history, a very sad and unfortunate one, mentioning Ken. On September 22nd, 1995, we lost a AWACS, an E-3 Sentry AWACS plane, call sign Yuckla 27. And Yuckla 27 was taken off out of Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska and hit a couple of geese. Took out 2 engines on the same side, which made it impossible with a full fuel load for them to gain any altitude. And they unfortunately, less than a mile off the end of the runway, crashed, killing all 24. I think it was a mostly American, but some Canadians on there, including a college ROTC friend of Ken's, First Lieutenant Carlos Arriaga. I think that's the right pronunciation, and Ken does a great job of remembering him. And of course, I have many of them were friends of friends of mine. Oftentimes, when some of the radio operators would transfer from the Airborne Command Post platform, they would go to the AWACS platform, and many of them went to Tinker, and then where the AWACS were based, and then so many of my colleagues had friends that were in the crash of Yuckla 27. So rest in peace to First Lieutenant Arriaga and all of his colleagues there. All right. Well, let's see. We had some veteran cemetery visits over the last couple of weeks. I know that Daryl has made over the last 2 weeks 3 visits that I counted to Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery. My dad and my sister visit Evergreen regularly, where they visit my mom, and my Uncle Bob, who was in retired Air Force. And then Lori and I, on the Saturday, my sister came and picked up Lori, and they went and did some last minute wedding stuff. And I took the opportunity to go visit Memphis National Cemetery, which I had never been to. And it's totally surrounded by neighborhoods. Anyway, I visited not too far from downtown Memphis National. And then on Sunday, on our way back, Lori and I stopped at Western Tennessee Veterans Cemetery. Pretty large cemetery, more out in the country than Memphis National, which is in the city. But we made that visit. That's the first time I'd been to either one of those. And so if we add those up, and I know that Carl visited, Carl put a post in the Speaking of Zane Facebook group in Sedalia, Missouri. Is that where the state fair is at? They had the Traveling Vietnam Memorial there, and Carl posted some pictures there. But if I add up our Veteran Cemetery Challenge visits, 12 visits over the last couple of weeks, and we're getting close to 1,300. We're at 1,285 visits to 190 different locations. Wow, that's incredible. Incredible. All right. And we had quite a few thank yous, veteran thank yous over the last couple of weeks. I'll tell you the ones I think I know about. My dad, Daryl was at Jefferson Barracks and met a Marine Corps vet, his veteran son, and his veteran son-in-law. No, that was at Omaha National, wasn't it, Daryl? And I had not cataloged that one. So when Daryl was in Omaha a couple of weeks ago, went to Omaha National. Marine Corps vet, his son, his son-in-law. I think I got that right. And then Daryl also met a retired Air Force guy called Ben at Jefferson Barracks. And then a Vietnam Purple Heart veteran called Robert that he often sees at his local grocery store, and saw him again today. And then my Aunt Paula checked in with us over this last week, and she thanked a Marine Corps veteran, an Army veteran, 4 veterans at Moffett Cancer Center, and then 2 Pasco County Sheriff deputies. And then Ken, I've got you down for the 2 Army, 2 soldiers at the Miami baseball game. And then Matt, one of Zane's battle buddies, met an Army guy during a week ago. And then at our niece's wedding, I thanked my sister's brother-in-law, Frankie, who retired from the Navy many years ago, still works for the Navy, and his son-in-law, who just retired from the Navy. And then met an Army guy at the hospital this week. And then my dad ran into an Army vet. I forget where you said that was, Dad, somewhere in town. So if I add all those thank yous up, we had 26 of them over the last couple of weeks. So pretty doggone good. Let me tell you, a little bit of a hiccup because I caved in, I splurged a little bit. I'm pretty much protein-based diet, right? That's how I've lost 90 pounds. But I got a hankering for pinto beans. Pinto beans. So I cooked up a big pot of pinto beans with pork belly and bacon and onion. Oh, and those things cooked for 6 hours on the stove. Oh my goodness. Oh, fantastic. I may regret it later, but first time I've had pinto beans in a couple of years. I just had a hankering. I'm going to make some chili, some keto-friendly chili sometime soon as it cools off. Anyway, so 26 thank yous this week. That puts us at 2,991 thank yous. We are 9 thank yous away from 3,000. Wow, incredible, incredible. It's not like we're hunting veterans, but as we go about our business, work, play, church, grocery shopping, school, we bump into a veteran and we just say, hey, how you doing? Or thank you. But so we've done that almost 3,000 times. Now, I guarantee you by the time next Sunday night comes around, we will have breached the 3,000 mark. How about that? Okay, moving along here. Organizations. We always talk about these organizations that do good things for veterans, military members. Remember, this is Speaking of Zane. We're talking about Zane. We're talking about his service. We're talking about people like him who sacrifice, people who pass on the battlefield and off. And, of course, Zane was off the battlefield. But we talk about organizations that we all become aware of, contribute to, become a part of, and we try to capture any of those things as they're doing good work. And so we've got a mess of them that we're either aware of, affiliated with, support, or involved with. And we always welcome you all talking about those. And we do as well. And probably the biggest thing this week to talk about in that category is My Warrior's Place. I mean, Kelly, happy birthday, Kelly, by the way. Kelly had a birthday last week. Kelly looks fantastic, by the way. And she's been in Italy with her cousin, or on a cruise, on a Mediterranean cruise. She's been to Greece and Turkey and Italy. And I think she was still over there when the storm hit. And I think she's back now. But and she's had a chance to survey the damage there. Unfortunately, the Blue Cottage, the biggest impact there. But anyway, I know that there'll be people, as they always do, coming to support My Warrior's Place and the good work that she does there, and that the whole organization does. And I know there'll be organizations that are donating and supplies and money and coming out to help. And like I said, my little group of 10 or 20 will mobilize over the next, month and a half, and try to get out there and help her with whatever she needs as well. So be thinking about Kelly. You can go to the Speaking of Zane Facebook group or go to My Warrior's Place Facebook, and you can keep track of what's going on and the recovery and everything. It's just a sad situation. Such a beautiful place, but it's just so prone to flooding when they get a surge like this. So I'm hoping she'll consider that Blue Cottage needs to get up on stilts, like the Pineapple House is on stilts, and it's a little farther inland. The Blue Cottage needs to be up, but they may just have to raise the Blue Cottage altogether. And I don't know what's going to happen there, but they just got it all renovated. It's a shame. But anyway, we'll be thinking about Kelly and praying for Kelly and checking in. And I do watch the wireless network there. Everything's been up. I get the notifications. Nothing went down. I watch the state of the connections, and there's always 30 plus different devices that are connected to the network getting to the internet, so I can watch that in real time and make sure everything's okay. And so I don't think they went any period of time without power, but they did have the flooding into the Blue Cottage. But anyway, well, we did have some. We have a segment that, thank goodness, we don't always have to report on, but there's a segment we talk about if we've lost anybody over the last week. And my friend Rhonda has a son that's in the Coast Guard. Brock is his name. Well, her son wasn't involved in this, but there were 5 Coast Guardsmen that were hurt in a boat explosion up in, I think, Virginia. I haven't seen a subsequent report, but there were no deaths, but there were 5 Coast Guard members that were hurt during this explosion. And then, of course, you may have seen today that Army veteran and West Point graduate Chris Christopherson passed away today. I think it was today. It might have been yesterday. I saw it today. But Chris had a long, full life, 88 years old. But just a very talented songwriter indeed. But okay, folks. Well, I know that was kind of long today, but hopefully everybody that was in the path or has been impacted by the hurricane is safe. It looks like Mary and some others down there in the Fitzgerald, Tifton, Osceola area are still without power, but I know that those crews are down there from all over the country, and service is slowly being restored. I know our friend Arlene, which is like a second mom to Lori and I, they were without power for quite some time. In Savannah, I mean, the thing came right over Atlanta, but Savannah got worse than we did. I mean, we didn't have very much wind on this. We were just on the west side of it. We didn't have very much, but just north of us, just devastated, but crazy. But anyway, praying for all of y'all that were in the path and impacted in any way by the hurricane, or have relatives or friends impacted. And but I know there's lots of ways to help and everything, but we'll be thinking about all of y'all. And I'm glad my dad and my sister are okay. They were my primary concern down there in South Georgia, and they are okay. And we'll be praying for all the rest down there that are still without power and everything. But good to have you all in here tonight. We'll look forward to giving you an update next weekend on Lori and what the heck is going on with her. And hopefully everybody will have a good week at work, at play, at school, whatever the case may be. And we'll look forward to seeing you all again, man. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you coming in and tuning in every week for Speaking of Zane. You don't have to. We know that, a person dies twice, they say, once when they take their last breath, and then again when their name's no longer spoken. And we want to make sure that Zane and then Tyler their names are spoken and they're not forgotten, and we'll do our part right up until it's time for us to go. But we appreciate you guys coming alongside us, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next Sunday night for another edition of Speaking of Zane. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you.